Just another powerful gospel again this week, one that I think probably we're familiar with. We've heard this before. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, that Jesus is the vine and we are the branches. So we've heard this before, and it's so beautiful just to reflect on it once again, though, to remember, if we remain in him and he in us, we're going to bear much fruit. But if we don't, we can do nothing. Nothing without God. And what we're called to do is to remain in him, to abide in him. By the way, this weekend we're celebrating First Communion Week, and it's the 5 o'clock Mass. We had 5 children receive First Communion at the 10 o'clock. We'll have 12 children receive communion, hopefully outside if it's not raining, so we'll pray for that, right? But because of that, the homily is kind of geared a little bit in the beginning to children, so enlighten me, all right? So I'll imagine that we're 7 and 8-year-olds. How does that sound, right? So that will make a lot more sense. So you're kind of getting a taste of a school homily sometimes. But with this, I love that image once again of that whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit. And it reminds me of my favorite animal to see at the zoo. I love going to the zoos, by the way, any zoo, right? Minnesota Zoo, Como Zoo, or if I'm traveling and people want to go to the zoo, I'm like, okay, let's go. But every single time that I go to the zoo, there's always one animal I want to see. Like the Como Zoo, I don't believe has them, but I know Minnesota Zoo does. I want to see the elephants. Why? Well, the elephant's big, so am I. Elephants like peanuts, so do I. Elephant is smart, I'm not, but I like to look at smart elephants, right? We're all pretty smart, by the way, but elephants are smart, and I love looking at them. It's just amazing to see their size, but not only that, but the more research you do into elephants, you realize that it's a very complex system, a complex herd. And there's some interesting that happens only with elephants. An elephant, by the way, when the mother becomes pregnant, will carry the child for 22 months. It's a 22-month pregnancy. All you moms out there thinking, praise God, I'm not an elephant, right? For 22 months carrying around that little child inside of them, which isn't too little when they're born, by the way. But one of the reasons that it's for 22 months is because even in the womb, the elephant, researchers have figured out the elephant, his brain is developing more and more and more, because when they're born, they have to know how to eat already. They have to know kind of the system of the herd and the social structure. And this is why they're inside the womb for so long, is just to get them developed far enough where they have a chance at survival. And as soon as that elephant is born, you see what you see for any child as well, little baby, right? As they go right to their mother, and they start to be protected. But most animals in the animal world, right, will leave after about a year or two. Not all of them. There's some that maybe stick around longer. We can think of orcas, by the way, stick around the little pod their whole life. Orangutans stick around their mother for 5 or 6 years. But elephants remain with their mother and the herd at least until they are 16 years old. It's quite amazing, actually, in the animal kingdom, the animal world, for this to happen. But why? Why does an elephant remain so long? Well, because at that time they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? They're hopefully getting smarter and smarter and smarter. But also they're remaining because they're being protected. The mother and actually the whole herd will protect that child, and they have to remain in there, because if they went off by themselves, there's no way that they would be able to survive. You're never going to quite see an elephant trying to camouflage themselves and hide from predators, by the way. They're just too big, right? And so they remain in this herd until at least maybe when they're 16, maybe then they'll go off and join a different one. And at that time, they're big enough, they're going to be fine to protect themselves. But they remain And in doing so, they're able to thrive. And we see this. We see that elephants, can thrive. Their predators can only take them down maybe, if one is sick or if one falls behind. And so it's so beautiful that they're able to remain. We go back to this passage today. Jesus says to us, "Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit." And so unlike an elephant, we're not like an elephant because we're not just supposed to stick around with Jesus, with God, until we're 16. We're not just supposed to stick around until we get confirmed at the age of 16. No, what Jesus is saying is we're called to remain in him all the time, and him in us. And of course, for all those children that were receiving First Communion, and for us as well as we receive the Eucharist today as well, Jesus does come inside of us. He's part of us. We are receiving Jesus Christ truly present, his flesh and his blood. And he becomes part of us. He remains in us. But do we remain in him? Do we abide in him? Do we abide in the sacraments of the Eucharist, of confession, and take advantage of those readily to be able to abide in him and walk with him and journey with him? Of course, this is what we're called to do. Because without him, we can do nothing. Without God, by the way, we can't even take a breath. He is the one that gives us everything. But he also says, I'm going to let you choose to abide in me or not. I'm never going to abandon you. But do we ever abandon him? Yes, we do. Praise God, there's forgiveness. And then we go back and we say, I want to remain in you. Because when I do this, when I remain in you, I receive all that I need. And you'll continue to protect me. You'll give me grace. And you'll give me life eternal, as long as I remain in you. And of course, you remain in me.